Let's talk about generative AI for a bit. Does this technology exacerbate some of the problems you've laid out to me already?
It could, but it may help. It's really hard to say. I mean, one of the things I'm experimenting with is, suppose you go to post a social media comment and it's a little bit angry. Could the system detect that and say, oh, are you sure, really? You could reword this and it might be, the other person might hear you better, that sort of thing. Could it help? I don't know. That's just an idea I have that I'm playing with. And then other things like at Wikipedia, we're looking at how could AI help us find errors, for example. And for that, it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's 70% of the time it identifies something as a potential error, and if it's right, that's hugely valuable because our humans can look at it and go, oh no, the AI is confused again, that one's not it. But we don't know yet. That's something that we've got our machine learning team at the Wikimedia Foundation looking at, okay, what are some of the possibilities here to help the Wikipedia community do a better job?
In any way, do you see generative AI as any kind of threat to Wikipedia to some extent?
No, not really. No? Especially today, it's so prone to making things up out of thin air that you couldn't really use it as an encyclopedia, or if you do, you're going to get embarrassed because it says all kinds of bonkers things. So.
Do you feel that the development of generative AI, how it's gone so far, is increasing the power of a lot of the tech giants at this point in time? Or do you feel there is space for innovation, for startups to come through and disrupt?
I mean, I think one of the things that's really interesting, there was a leaked memo from someone at Google saying there is no moat. And what that was about is saying, look, we're only a half step ahead of the open source people. So the models that are out there in open source, the models that anybody can download and run on a few machines, that a startup can spend $50,000 training, so you're not going to do it as a hobbyist, but startup, that's not a big deal, $50,000. It's really impressive. And so this also, I think, should inform how we think about potential regulation. I say this to regulators a lot. If you think, okay, only 5 big companies can do this, so you can regulate, because you can always regulate 5 big companies. They don't really have a choice, they'll do what you say, but you can't regulate 200,000 hobbyists in their basement, and you can't regulate 100,000 startups. Not really. And so I think there is huge opportunity for improvement, for innovation, and for positive things. And I think we should, always when you see new technology, there's always sort of low-hanging fruit fear-mongering. But there's also incredible positive things that can come out of this, and we've got to look at those aspects as well.
Let's pick up on a couple of strands there. The first one is this debate playing out, and you've alluded to it there. People like Elon Musk and other technologists say that AI, if it continues to develop at this pace, is a potential threat to humanity, an existential threat to humanity. There's others who say, well, this is just fear-mongering, and actually, those who are making the arguments are doing so to further entrench their already strong power. Where are you in that debate?
I would tend to be in that second group, but in a mild way. I do think there are real threats, and we have to assess as we move forward in a really thoughtful and serious way. But Elon told me I would have a self-driving car by now, and I don't. So maybe Elon's not the best predictor of future technology.
In terms of, and the second point you raised there was regulation. Is it possible to regulate AI? The EU is trying with the EU AI Act, and there are others who are taking a more standoffish approach and saying, let's see how this develops. Is it possible to regulate AI?
Well, I think it's possible for Europe to put itself 10 years behind the rest of the world by regulating AI in Europe. It's not possible globally to do that. The Chinese have no interest in slowing down. The amount of money, sheer amount of money flowing into this in the US and in Europe means that a lot of work is going on, a lot of progress is being made, and I don't see a role for regulators that makes any sense right now.
That point you mentioned there about the global state of affairs is interesting. Bletchley Park, the UK AI Summit that took place. The whole point there was to try to reach some form of global consensus about the risks of AI, which on the surface it looks like was achieved, but obviously there wasn't anything concrete in terms of action as a result. The world wants to move towards some sort of global consensus around what to do with AI, whether it's the risk, whether it's regulation. In reality, though, there's a competition right now for technology. So does global consensus just become impossible?
Yeah, well, good question. I think in the next couple of years we're going to find out. I mean, certainly we have now flipped the switch. I would say once the public got a glimpse of ChatGPT, and everybody got a glimpse of what's potentially possible, it really started the race. And I won't call it an arms race because I'm more optimistic than that, but it's a race. And before this, I was hearing from friends at Google, like, what's coming down the line is really mind-blowing, but they weren't releasing things because there was no competitive pressure to it at that time. And give them credit, they're, Demis Hassabis, DeepMind, very ethical, very thoughtful people trying to move slowly. Now, can they move slowly? Probably not, because there's other products, sort of Bing is using ChatGPT, so therefore Google is using Bard, and, it's there now, and we're moving. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the open source people are plowing forward very, very quickly in a very interesting way. So.